I never imagined the worst day of my life would begin in the executive conference room of the company I helped build. The room was full. Department heads, senior engineers, board members, managers, people who had worked beside me for years. Not one of them spoke. Emma Carter stood at the front of the room in a charcoal suit, every bit the confident CEO everyone admired. She looked at me as if I were a complete stranger. "This meeting has only one purpose," she said, "to address a serious breach of trust." My stomach tightened. I glanced around the room. Several people lowered their eyes. No one looked surprised. That frightened me more than anything. Emma picked up a folder from the conference table. Our newest government contract was compromised yesterday. She opened it without looking at me. The internal investigation points to one individual. Finally, her eyes met mine. Daniel. For a second, I honestly thought she was joking. I even smiled. Very funny. She didn't smile back. I wish it were. The room remained painfully quiet. I took a slow step forward. "Emma, what are you talking about?" She placed several printed reports on the table. Unauthorized access. She turned another page. Confidential files copied. Another page. Project timelines altered. She looked directly into my eyes. "Every action traces back to your credentials." I felt my heartbeat quicken. "That's impossible." "Is it?" I'd never do that. I only know what the evidence shows." I laughed once. A short, disbelieving sound. "The evidence?" "Yes. You believe a computer log over your husband?" Her expression didn't change. "I believe facts." I searched her face for some sign of doubt, some indication she was waiting for me to explain everything. Instead, I found nothing. Just cold certainty. "Someone framed me." Emma folded her hands. "Do you have proof?" "Not yet." "Then we're finished." I stared at her. "What?" She inhaled slowly before speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "As Chief Executive Officer of Carter Technologies, effective immediately, I am terminating your employment." The words echoed through the room. Nobody moved. Nobody objected. My mind refused to process what I had just heard. "Emma." Her voice remained calm. "Your company access has already been revoked." "Our company?" "No." She shook her head. "My company." That hurt more than being fired. I looked around the conference room. Michael from engineering. Grace from finance. Olivia from system security. People who knew me. People who had trusted me for years. None of them said a word. "You're all just going to watch this happen?" I asked. The silence answered for them. Emma pressed the intercom. "Security, please come to the executive conference room." I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Two security officers entered moments later. Neither would meet my eyes. Emma spoke without emotion. "Escort Mr. Carter from the building." One officer shifted uncomfortably. "Sir." I raised a hand. "It's fine." I looked at Emma one last time. "If you honestly believe I betrayed you, then somewhere along the way you stopped knowing who I am." She didn't answer. I picked up the small cardboard box someone had already prepared. Inside were framed photographs. A coffee mug Olivia had given me on my first anniversary with the company. A notebook full of design sketches. 2 pens. 20 years of work reduced to a box that barely weighed anything. As I walked toward the door, whispers finally began. "They actually fired him." "I can't believe it." "Do you think he really did it?" "I don't know." Neither did I. The elevator ride down felt endless. When the doors opened, employees filling the lobby suddenly became quiet. Some pretended to check their phones. Others quickly walked away. I carried the box through the front entrance without looking back. Outside, the afternoon air felt strangely cold. I placed the box inside my car, but didn't start the engine. Instead, I sat there staring at the headquarters. 2 years ago, Emma and I had celebrated our wedding on the rooftop. 5 years before that, we had celebrated our first successful software launch. Long before she became CEO, we had dreamed about building something extraordinary together. I smiled bitterly. We had. What almost nobody knew was that the company's core technology had started as sketches in my apartment. I designed the adaptive server architecture. I built the security framework. I created the recovery protocols that kept our clients online during disasters. Whenever executives praised Emma's leadership, I stayed in the background because she deserved to shine. I never cared about recognition. I care about us, about the company, about what we were building together. Over the years, I quietly fixed countless crises before anyone noticed they existed. A failed software update, a cyber attack, 3 hardware failures, a corrupted financial database. Every time, I solved the problem without asking for credit. Emma always thanked the department, never knowing how close everything had come to collapse. I never corrected her. Watching her succeed made me happy. Now I wondered if that had been my greatest mistake. My phone vibrated. Olivia. I answered immediately. Olivia. Her voice sounded frantic. Daniel, where are you? Driving home. No. I frowned. What happened? You need to come back. I laughed softly. I don't think security would appreciate that. I'm serious. What is it? She lowered her voice. The primary server cluster just crashed. I sat upright. What? We lost authentication services. That shouldn't happen. It gets worse. She took a shaky breath. The backup cluster failed too. My heart sank. Impossible. We've never seen anything like this. I closed my eyes. The emergency recovery system? Not responding. The mirrored databases? Offline. A terrible realization settled over me. The automated restoration sequence. Silence. Then Olivia whispered, "It never activated." I knew why. Only one person had ever completed the final recovery architecture. Me. I had never documented the last stage because I intended to finish it after the next software release. No one else even knew it existed. My phone buzzed with another incoming call. Grace. Then Michael. Then 3 senior engineers. I didn't answer. Olivia was still speaking. Daniel. What? The board is in complete panic. I looked through my windshield toward the distant glass tower. What about Emma? Another pause. She just found out. And she asked who could restore everything. I already knew the answer before Olivia said it. The entire room realized only one person understands the system well enough. I gripped the steering wheel. 1 hour earlier, I had been escorted out as a traitor. Now the company I built was collapsing. And the woman who had fired me was about to discover that the man she no longer trusted was the only one who could save everything. I wrapped both hands around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The cafe was quiet. A few students worked on laptops. An elderly couple shared a slice of cake near the window. Soft music drifted through the room. Nobody knew that less than 2 miles away, the company I'd spent years building was falling apart. For the first time since leaving Carter Technologies, I allowed myself to breathe. Then my phone vibrated again. Michael. I ignored it. A second later, Grace called. Then Olivia. Then 3 engineers. I turned the phone over on the table. I couldn't answer. Not yet. I still couldn't understand how Emma had looked into my eyes and believed I would betray her. That hurt more than losing my job. The waitress approached carefully. Would you like another coffee? I looked up and forced a smile. Please. She refilled my cup without asking questions. I appreciated that. For a few peaceful seconds, the world was silent again. Then the television mounted above the counter flashed with breaking financial news. Carter Technologies shares have fallen sharply following reports of major service disruptions. Several customers looked toward the screen. I looked away. My phone buzzed once more. This time, it was a message from Olivia. Please answer. It's getting worse. Before I could decide what to do, another message appeared. Entire client platform offline. Then another. Emergency board meeting. Then another. Emma is asking for you. I closed the phone again. Back at headquarters, chaos had replaced confidence. Emma stood in the main operations center watching engineers race between workstations. Screens glowed red across the room. Error messages multiplied faster than anyone could read them. Status? She demanded. Olivia barely looked away from her monitor. No progress. What about the backup servers? They won't authenticate. The emergency recovery environment? It rejected every administrator credential. Emma frowned. That's impossible. Olivia slowly turned toward her. No, it's Daniel. The room became quiet. Emma stared at her. What does that mean? Olivia chose her words carefully. He designed every recovery protocol. I know that. But he also designed the security layers protecting them. Emma folded her arms. We have documentation. Olivia shook her head. Not enough. What are you saying? I'm saying nobody understands the complete architecture except Daniel. Another engineer looked up. She's right. Emma's expression tightened. There has to be another way. Nobody answered. Because there wasn't. Inside the executive boardroom, the directors gathered around a polished table covered with reports and laptops. Richard Vaughn remained unusually calm, almost relaxed. One director slammed a folder onto the table. Our largest client just suspended its contract. Another added, 2 investors are threatening litigation. A third rubbed his forehead. If this continues another 6 hours, we'll lose millions. Emma entered without speaking. Everyone looked toward her. The chairman broke the silence. Can Daniel restore the systems? Emma hesitated. I don't know. Richard leaned back in his chair. It doesn't matter. Several heads turned. He sabotaged the company. Emma looked at him. You still believe that? The evidence hasn't changed. Before anyone could respond, the conference room door opened. Lily stepped inside carrying a tablet and several printed documents. She looked nervous. Ms. Carter. Richard frowned. This is a board meeting. I know. You weren't invited. Lily swallowed. I came because someone has to tell the truth. Richard stood immediately. Leave. Emma raised a hand. Let her speak. Lily walked to the center of the room. I work in financial compliance. She placed several documents on the table. Yesterday, I found discrepancies while reviewing archived correspondence. Richard's confidence slipped slightly. What correspondence? Emails. She tapped the tablet. I recovered deleted messages from your executive account. Richard laughed. Fabricated. They're verified by the server archive. Emma picked up the tablet. Her eyes moved quickly across the screen. The color slowly disappeared from her face. One email read, move the project losses into Daniel's department. Another followed. Emma already trusts the reports. Another, if Daniel is removed, nobody will question the infrastructure delays. Emma looked up. What is this? Richard shrugged. Taken out of context. Lily shook her head. There are 63 emails. Another board member opened the printed copies. My God. Richard's voice hardened. Those messages don't prove anything. They prove, Lily answered quietly, that you manipulated financial reports for months. She turned toward Emma, and every major failure was reassigned to Daniel before it ever reached your desk. Emma continued reading. Each page made her expression worse. Another message. Keep pushing the narrative that Daniel wants more control. Another. The board already doubts him. Another. Once he's gone, the technology division becomes ours. Emma lowered the papers. You told me Daniel had been bypassing approval procedures. Richard remained silent. You said he was creating security risks. Still nothing. You convinced me he wanted to replace me. Richard finally spoke. I protected this company. Lily answered before Emma could. No. You protected yourself. The room fell completely silent. Emma slowly sat down. Every conversation she had shared with Richard over the previous 6 months replayed inside her mind. Every warning, every accusation, every carefully planted doubt. She remembered asking Daniel why he worked so many late nights. He had smiled. Someone has to make sure everything keeps running. She remembered complaining that the board never appreciated her enough. He had laughed softly. They will eventually. She remembered the nights he quietly disappeared from dinner because another system emergency demanded his attention. She had assumed his team solved the problem. Now she understood. He had. Every single time. Without asking for recognition. Without blaming anyone else. Without ever making her feel less capable. Emma covered her face with both hands. What have I done? No one answered. Because everyone already knew. The chairman finally spoke. Find him. Olivia stood immediately. We've been trying. Keep trying. Grace entered the room, carrying another report. We just lost our European distribution platform. Another director's phone rang. He answered, listened for several seconds, then slowly lowered it. Our largest investor wants an emergency conference call. Now, he wants to know whether Daniel Carter is returning. Emma looked up sharply. What did you tell him? The truth. And that is, he said if Daniel doesn't come back, they'll reconsider every investment they've made. The room fell silent once more. Miles away, I finally unlocked my phone. 43 missed calls, 21 text messages, 9 voicemails, 1 message from Emma. Please answer. I stared at those 2 words for a long time. For years, I had answered every call the moment she needed me. Today, I couldn't decide whether she wanted her husband back, or simply the man who knew how to save her company. For the first time since she fired me, I realized those might not be the same thing. And I wasn't sure which answer hurt more. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when the bell above the cafe door chimed. I barely looked up. Then I heard someone say my name. Daniel. Chairman Foster stood just inside the entrance. Behind him were Sarah from the board, Grace, Michael, Olivia, and 3 other directors. The conversations around the cafe slowly faded. Everyone was looking at us. I set my coffee down. I wasn't expecting company. Chairman Foster walked closer. I imagined not. The others stopped a respectful distance away. No one sat down. No one spoke. Finally, the chairman cleared his throat. We owe you an apology. I looked at each of them. You certainly owe me something. Sarah stepped forward. We failed you. You did. We should have questioned the evidence. You should have. She lowered her eyes. I believed Richard because he sounded confident. I nodded slowly. People usually do. Chairman Foster took a deep breath. Daniel, Carter Technologies is in critical condition. I've seen the news. It's worse than what's being reported. I figured. Our infrastructure continues failing. I remained silent. Our clients are leaving. Still silent. Our investors are preparing lawsuits. I wrapped my hand around my coffee. I'm sorry to hear that. The chairman looked genuinely pained. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I met his eyes. Harder? You know what I mean? No, I don't. He hesitated. I know we've treated you unfairly. I laughed quietly. Unfairly? A few customers glanced toward us. You escorted me out of the building like a criminal. No one answered. You stood there while my own wife called me a traitor. Sarah whispered. We know. I lost my career. Grace looked like she wanted to cry. My reputation. Michael stared at the floor. My marriage. The silence became unbearable. Chairman Foster finally said the words I never expected to hear. We were wrong. I studied his face. He meant it. Every word. He continued quietly. The company needs you. I shook my head. The company had me. You still belong there. I belonged there yesterday. I stood. Then security escorted me to the parking lot. Sarah stepped closer. We'll restore your position. I don't want it. We'll double your salary. I smiled sadly. Money stopped matching yesterday. The chairman frowned. What do you want? I answered honestly. I wanted my wife to trust me. No one had a response. The cafe door opened again. I didn't need to look. I knew. Emma. The room seemed to grow quieter as she slowly walked toward me. Her eyes were red. She looked exhausted. Not like the confident CEO who had fired me. Just like the woman I married. She stopped beside the table. May I sit? I nodded once. The board quietly stepped back, giving us space. Emma looked at her hands before speaking. I've rehearsed this conversation 100 times. And nothing sounded good enough. I waited. She took a shaky breath. I believed Richard. Yes. I believed every report. I know. I believed every accusation. I know. She finally looked at me. I never asked you for your side. That one hurt the most. No. I should have. You should have. A tear rolled down her cheek. I kept thinking a CEO had to trust evidence instead of emotions. I leaned back. And your husband? She closed her eyes. I forgot he wasn't just another employee. I looked out the window. No. You were the man who had never lied to me. Her voice broke. And I treated you like a stranger. I stayed silent. She wiped her eyes. I don't deserve another chance. I don't know. I don't deserve forgiveness. I haven't decided. I only know one thing. She reached across the table. I was wrong. Those 3 words carried more weight than every explanation she could have offered. Before I could answer, Olivia's phone rang. She answered immediately. Her face changed. What happened? The cafe became silent again. She listened for another moment, then looked directly at Chairman Foster. It's Richard. Everyone froze. What now? The chairman asked. He just accessed the executive servers. That's impossible. Olivia shook her head. He started deleting financial archives. Grace gasped. Can he do that? No. Olivia looked at me. Unless. I already knew. He still has emergency administrator credentials. Emma stood instantly. We have to stop him. Olivia's phone rang again. This time it was Lily. Olivia placed the call on speaker. Lily, I caught him. What? Richard thought he deleted everything. Everyone leaned closer. But he forgot Daniel. I frowned. What do you mean? Lily laughed softly. The hidden backups. Emma looked at me. You made additional backups? Months ago. What? I answered quietly. I never trusted giving one person complete control. Lily continued speaking. The backup servers automatically mirrored every deleted file. Olivia smiled for the first time all day. So nothing's gone. Nothing. Another voice interrupted the call. David, I've got security with me. What happened? Olivia asked. I found Richard trying to leave through the underground garage. Emma stood perfectly still. Did he admit anything? David answered immediately. He admitted enough. The cafe remained silent. He tried blaming Daniel again. I smiled bitterly. Of course. But the restored logs prove Richard accessed every compromised system. Lily added, and we recovered the embezzlement records. Chairman Foster frowned. Embezzlement. David answered. Millions. Emma slowly shook her head. I can't believe this. You'll believe the evidence. Another pause. Then David spoke again. The police just arrived. None of us said anything. We're handing Richard over now. I closed my eyes for a brief moment. Months of manipulation, lies, humiliation, all collapsing in a single afternoon. David's final words came through the speaker. Richard Vaughn is under arrest for fraud, corporate sabotage, and embezzlement. The call ended. Nobody moved. Chairman Foster finally broke the silence. He'll never return to this company. Sarah nodded. The board is removing him from every position effective immediately. Emma looked back at me. The truth finally came out. I looked into her eyes. It should never have taken this long. She nodded. I know. The chairman stepped forward once more. Daniel. I turned toward him. The board unanimously requests your return. Every director nodded. You built this company. You protected it. And today you saved it without even walking back inside. I looked around the cafe. At the customers pretending not to stare. At the board members waiting for my answer. At Emma, whose tears reflected both regret and hope. Then I looked down at my untouched coffee. Yesterday, I would have returned without hesitation. Today, I understood something I hadn't before. Saving a company was easy compared to rebuilding broken trust. And I wasn't sure which battle mattered more, that I didn't return to Carter Technologies the next morning, or the morning after that. Instead, I stayed home. For the first time in years, I woke without checking server reports, emergency alerts, or overnight system logs. The silence felt unfamiliar, but it also gave me room to think. Emma respected that. She called once each evening. Sometimes we talked for 20 minutes. Sometimes only for 2. She never asked me to come back. She only asked how I was. It was a small change, but it mattered. 3 days after Richard's arrest, Chairman Foster invited me to a special meeting. This isn't about fixing the servers, he said over the phone. It's about fixing what we broke. When I arrived, the auditorium was filled. Every department, every manager, every executive, hundreds of employees stood quietly waiting. The same people who had watched me leave carrying a cardboard box. I paused at the entrance. Emma walked toward me. She wasn't wearing her usual designer suit. Instead, she wore a simple navy jacket without the title of authority she normally carried so effortlessly. You came, she said softly. You said this wasn't about business. It isn't. She looked nervous. I had never seen that before. Chairman Foster stepped onto the stage. Thank you all for coming. The room became completely silent. Several days ago, this company failed one of its own. He looked directly at me. We accepted accusations without demanding truth. No one moved. We watched an innocent man lose both his position and his dignity. The words settled over the room. I take responsibility for that failure. He stepped back. Then Emma walked onto the stage. For several seconds, she simply stood there, looking at everyone, looking at me. Finally, she spoke. When I became CEO, I believed leadership meant making difficult decisions quickly. She took a slow breath. I confused confidence with certainty. The room remained silent. I accused my husband of betraying this company. Her voice trembled. I never gave him the chance to defend himself. I saw several employees lower their heads. Emma continued. I humiliated him in front of every person who mattered to him. She turned toward me, and I did it without proof. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. I was wrong. No rehearsed speech. No corporate language. Just the truth. I betrayed the person who had spent years protecting me, protecting this company, and protecting every employee standing in this room. She wiped away a tear. I cannot ask him to forgive me. Her voice steadied. But I can accept responsibility. She looked toward the board. Effective immediately, I am stepping aside as Chief Executive Officer until the board determines I have earned the trust necessary to lead again. The room erupted. What? She's stepping down? No way. Chairman Foster raised a hand, asking for silence. Emma didn't change her mind. I cannot ask this company to value accountability if I refuse to live by it myself. She stepped away from the podium. Nobody applauded. Nobody cheered. The moment was too honest for that. After the meeting ended, the board invited me into the executive conference room. I stopped in the doorway. The same room. The same polished table. The same chair where Emma had fired me. For a moment, I could almost hear her words again. Effective immediately, I closed my eyes. Then I walked inside. Chairman Foster waited until everyone had taken a seat. Daniel, I looked at him. We'd like to make you an offer. I'm listening. It isn't employment. That caught my attention. Sarah slid a folder toward me. You were never just an employee. I opened it. Inside was a partnership agreement, equity, voting authority, a permanent seat on the executive board. I looked up slowly. What is this? Chairman Foster smiled. The position you should have had years ago. I remained silent. He continued. You designed a technology that built this company. You protected it. You saved it. He folded his hands. We don't want to hire you. We want to stand beside you. The room became quiet. Emma hadn't spoken once. She simply watched me, waiting. I closed the folder. I appreciate the offer. Sarah frowned slightly. But I need you to understand something. Everyone listened. A company can rebuild damaged software. I looked around the room. It can replace equipment. I looked at Chairman Foster. It can recover lost money. Finally, I looked at Emma. But trust isn't restored because someone signs a contract. No one interrupted. You can rebuild a business with skill. I paused. You rebuild a marriage with honesty. Emma lowered her eyes. And honesty takes time. She nodded. I know. I stood and walked toward the windows overlooking the city. When you fired me, I thought everything I'd spent years creating had disappeared. I turned back. I was wrong. Everyone waited. What mattered most wasn't my position. It was whether the people I loved believed in me. Emma's eyes filled again. I stopped believing in myself because I thought I'd lost that. The silence stretched across the room. Then Chairman Foster asked quietly, So what's your decision? I looked at the partnership agreement once more. I thought about the engineers who had trusted my work. About Olivia refusing to stay silent. About Lily risking her career. About David exposing Richard. About the employees who had built their futures inside these walls. Finally, I smiled. I accept. Relief spread around the room. But not for the reasons you think. Chairman Foster tilted his head. I'm not coming back for revenge. I looked toward Emma. I'm not coming back for money. Then I looked at every board member. I'm coming back because too many honest people depend on this company. Several directors nodded. And I won't let what happened to me happen to anyone else. For the first time since this nightmare began, the room felt hopeful. The following weeks weren't perfect. Emma and I attended counseling together. Some conversations were painful. Some ended in silence. Others ended with laughter we thought we'd lost forever. Neither of us pretended healing was easy. Trust returned one honest conversation at a time. Months later, I stood once again inside the executive conference room. The same room where security had waited for me. The same room where I had carried out a cardboard box holding what remained of my career. It looked different now. Not because the furniture had changed. Because I had. Emma walked beside me. You ready? I smiled. This room doesn't scare me anymore. She reached for my hand. I'll spend the rest of my life earning back what I broke. I squeezed her fingers gently. I know. The board members entered one by one. This time, they didn't see me as an employee. They didn't see me as the CEO's husband. They saw me for who I had always been. A builder, a protector, a partner. As I took my seat beside Emma instead of across from her, I realized something I would never forget. Titles can be taken away. Jobs can disappear. Reputations can be damaged. But when your worth is built on truth, integrity, and the courage to keep standing after betrayal, no one can ever diminish your value again. And this time, everyone in the room knew it.